We're getting into our conversation now around World Contraception Day. Like we'd said, today, Friday the 26th, is World Contraception Day. And we're speaking with Jerop Limo, who is the Executive Director at the Ambassador for Youth and Adolescent Reproductive Health Program. We're talking contraception with confidence. It's often a conversation that is, chinyamaji. Chinyamaji. You whisper it, and as a result, Kenya has some of the highest rates of teenage pregnancy. I think she'll give us more insight into the rate of contraception use as a whole, even in middle class and, above, quote unquote. But all of that needs to be something that we mainstream, and that's the beginning of our conversation. Welcome, Jerop.
Thank you for having me.
It's so nice to have you.
I'm honored to be here.
Before we get into anything else, let's share our quote for the day. Usually Janet shares the quote. She is our Jano for quotes, but today I'm holding fort for her, right? So I'll tell you a quote. You can say if it speaks anything to you, if you resonate with it in any way, and of course, if it just sounds true. Okay. Molefi kete asante. This is speaking in 1980. Molefi kete asante at the USA Afrocentricity said, "Until Africans control their own narratives, they will remain captives of other people's imagination." Until Africans control their own narratives, they will remain captives of other people's imagination.
That definitely clicks in so many ways. In the space that I work in, we constantly talk about the need for autonomy for us Africans to make decisions about programs, about interventions, about our health, about infrastructure, and even development. Well, we are not yet there, but we are trying to make sure that Africans realize we have the power to control the narrative.
Yes. We're not there, but we're getting there.
Yes, we're getting there.
What will it take for us to get there?
Gosh, I think first of all, the power of self-belief. I feel like as Africans, we believe that guys at the global north are way better than us. Their countries are way better than ours. So we try to go there so that we can make it.
Right.
We don't believe that we can actually make it here and we can make our home even better and that we have better than they do, which is true.
That's very true.
Yeah, so it will take a lot of self-belief, but also trying to ensure that we fix our own systems and that our countries actually work for us. Yeah.
That's a good one. It's the same thing. It's the power within us, and we need to start thinking about it from our own context, not from the context of somebody else and then trying to
from their lens,
and not trying to adjust ourselves to their lens or to their perspective. Okay, it's World Contraception Day. Why is it a big thing?
Why? It's a big thing because reproductive health is important. It's a big thing because it's something we should be concerned about as a country who has some of the highest rates of teenage pregnancy. It's something that is important because we want to ensure that access to health, including reproductive health, which is guaranteed to us by Article 43 of the Constitution, is a reality for young women, older women, and our communities generally.
Your organization, Ambassador for Youth and Adolescent Reproductive Health Program, is very clear. Youth and adolescent. Right?
Yeah.
Who's youth and who's adolescent?
So a youth...
What's the difference?
A youth would be basically someone who's under 35, up to about 16-ish. And then you have from around 10, 12, 13, 14, who are now like the adolescents.
Okay.
Basically teenagers, but we do call them adolescents. Yeah.
I like that we have a distinction. Sorry, the voice wants to do the thing. But we have a distinction between those two. But when it comes to their vulnerabilities as well, there is clear differences, right? When you're underage, the idea that you should be on contraception is very taboo in an African society, even sometimes when you are an adult, right?
Yeah.
So what are the distinct differences in lobbying and pushing for access to contraception for adolescents and youth?
So for youth, I mean, if you're above 18, you are guaranteed you can be able to walk into a clinic and access this product or this service, and you don't need to have a parent or a caregiver to consent on your behalf.
Yes.
But you see, if you're below 18, then there's issues of consent where you need an older adult who is 18 and above all years to be able to consent on your behalf. In the context of Kenya, in terms of law and policies and what guidelines say, if you're below 18, then you need the consent of a parent. We are an African country,
yes,
right? We are dealing with a different generation right now. We are dealing with Gen Zs who have a lot of autonomy and knowledge and information and have higher exposure rates, and they believe that if I am having unprotected sex, I should be allowed to access or utilize this product so that I protect myself. But then again, the law doesn't allow. So it becomes a tricky conversation, but we try to say, is this a mature minor? Are they a young mother already? Are they leading a home or a family already? Are they married already? Because we do have young girls who are already in marriage, although that is illegal.
Right.
But it's still a context that applies to our case. Yeah.
You know, the line you're walking is it's a very thin one. It's a very, very thin one.
Yeah.
I'm thinking through, before we even talk about, you said that you're dealing with a generation that's very different and largely understands empowerment, but is that true for the whole country? Because sometimes we blanket and we say Gen Z. It's like Gen Z here might be different from Gen Z in Kilifi, might be different from Gen Z just over here in Thika. Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, it's very true. I say young people are not homogeneous. They're diverse, they're different, they operate differently, and in our context from county to county. So you'll have young people in urban areas, the Nairobi, who have a bit exposure, but exposure does not equate to information.
Thank you.
Exposure doesn't equate to information or being informed. And then you have young people in ASAL countries, the Samburu, the Isiolos, who don't have access to information or are not as exposed as we would want them to be and don't have access to information. So how they relate and deal with these issues, especially around reproductive health, is very different. And that's why we do programming based on context.
Okay.
So if it's in Isiolo, we would not approach it the same way we would do it here in Nairobi. It's very different because you have to pay attention to the culture, to the norms, to the beliefs, and even the resources available.
Can you give us the difference? Take us to Isiolo and run a program just now. What is it that you do that will be different from how you do it in Nairobi?
So in Nairobi, proximity from me to accessing a clinic could be like 5 minutes away, just down here, right? But in Isiolo, it could take me even 7 hours to access the nearest clinic. And this is the clinic that now is equipped and has the services and the products you need, right?
That's a 7 hour like bus ride or a 7 hour walk or a 7 hour, whichever,
right?
Okay.
In Isiolo, if I am 17 years old or 16 or 15, I might be married, meaning I need to ask for permission from Ze. Can I? In the first place, contraceptive is not even a conversation we have in this community setting. My work is to give birth and to be the mother and the wife. But in Nairobi, a 15-year-old is still young. They want to enjoy life. They have bits and pieces of information. They know how to use the University of Google and ChatGPT. And they can quickly make use of digital platform. Probably they've watched Sugar and they know I can actually go and access this product, right? So how I would do it here in Nairobi is I can easily engage and have these conversations. Actually, young people are interested and they have the hunger. But in Isiolo or Samburu, I have to start thinking about how do I intersect their culture, their norms, and try to make them understand why family planning or contraception is important. I wouldn't necessarily engage the young person or the young girl alone. I'd have to engage the community, the chief, the husband, because they all influences the decisions that she makes.
But then,
just her decision.
So let's work with the reality is that a majority of 15-year-old girls in Isiolo are not married. Okay?
Yeah.
Just the same reality as the majority of the 15-year-old girl in Nairobi is not married. But they are all minors. And here's the assumption. of those two communities, where are you likely to find a majority of 15-year-old girls being sexually active?
You'd be surprised, but I'd say in both areas.
Okay.
I'd say in both areas.
So both at 15 are sexually active. Now, these are not married. None of them is married.
Yep.
So they're not doing it, in that kind of situation where we can say this is a culturally forced sex.
Yeah.
It is them making some form of a decision to engage in sexual activity.
Yes.
Who are they engaging with?
Boyfriends.
What age bracket?
Actually, right now, we have 15-year-olds with 15-year-olds. And then we have some with 18-year-olds or amongst their age. But what we are seeing in the programs we implement is now it's amongst themselves. It's peer to peer.
Basically, I think
Peers,
I think that has always been the case. And unless in those areas where it's forced marriage, it's always among peers. And peer is not necessarily age mates. It is within somebody's in the age bracket. And I like the fact that you're dealing with adolescent and youth.
Yes.
Because you'll find that teenagers in secondary school will be engaging with those in college who have finished college. But they're still kids. They're 19, they're 20, they're young, right? So this 15-year-old does not have legal agency to make a decision. Okay? And that's why if this 19-year-old were found to be engaging in sex with a 15-year-old, the 19-year-old will attend a nanny. Because we have assumed that there's an adult
in the picture.
Okay?
Yeah.
So why do you want the 15-year-old to make a decision
on contraception,
and they can't make the decision on sex?
And I mean, that's where we say there's a disconnect between policy, law, and the lived realities of our communities. The idea is we don't want this young person to say, I want a contraceptive. We want this young person to have the knowledge in their head that if they decide to have sex, these are the consequences, and this is how you can protect yourself in whatever situation that is. The idea is we are giving young people information so that then they can make an informed choice, because then we don't want unintended pregnancy, and sometimes it could be even unknowingly, because the levels of information and understanding is different among these adolescents. So that's why we go further to say we are going to train caregivers and parents, not to train them, but to have these dialogues and conversations with them. And when engaging parents and caregivers, you realize, I didn't know that this was important. This information is important. I want my daughter to be empowered. I want my son to be empowered, so that then they're able to make an informed choice. I
think that's a really good distinction, because it's a perception problem. When people think contraception or anyone pushing for contraception, it's that one. It's that you're going and you're telling the kids, shika a condom, while it's really more information. And I've talked about this on the show so many times before. If we don't vastly improve the way we do our sex education, we can't escape the high rates of teenage pregnancy, the age of sexual debut. We can't escape all those realities. So it's information, it's giving choice, it's giving options. But I find out that the more you know, the less likely you are to even engage in sex when you're younger. So I was going to ask then, what is the age of sexual debut for Kenyan girls? On average.
On average. Maybe to also mention that the youngest mother in Kenya is 9 years old. And that was like the case that was reported and documented. So we are having as early as the age of 13 and 12 right now. And so that's why this information is important, because we are dealing with a generation that is somehow informed but not properly or comprehensively informed. And like you said, options is a word we talk about, but the reality is different. There are different contraceptives. We have oral, we have long-term, we have short-term, but at the end of the day, the reality of our context here in Kenya is that these options are never available. And with lack of information or lack of support systems, young people might not know where to access. And that's why we exist, to be able to say, if you go to facility X, and your option that works for your body and your system is not there, there is this channel you can follow and go to facility A where you get what you need. But the first aspect is that clinician or healthcare provider gives you all the information you require and helps you to make a choice.
I was going to ask, let's paint a scenario.
Yeah.
Say you know what, we're a TikTok generation, and that's across the country, doesn't matter where. And the beauty of it is access to information, some of it good, some of it bad. Thinking of, I have a boyfriend, I'm 16, potentially may want to engage in sex, but I've seen a thing or two. I go to a level 2. I go to the nearest. That's my dispensary.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let's start from there. What am I likely to get there as far as reproductive health is concerned?
You're most likely to get a condom.
Which is contraception.
Which is contraception, yes. And maybe if you go further, you can get a bit 2 options. Maybe the daily oral pill, or something. You won't.
I'll get at the very least a condom.
At the very least a condom. Yes.
Okay, that's from physically what I'll get there.
Yeah.
From should I call it counseling? From a healthcare provider perspective, yes. Will I go in and be judged? Because again, this is my community, so. That's the person who's dispensing this condom is Mama so and so. She knows me. Yeah. What does that look like?
Actually, that's one of the biggest barriers we have, and not just even for guys who are below the ages of 18 and whose parents are willing to take them to access these services. Even for guys who are above the ages of 18, it's the fear, it's the shame, it's the stigma around anything related to sex. As an African country, as a religious country, you're bound to experience this. So I'd start from the gate. You've gotten to the gate, first of all.
Yes.
This is a hospital, probably level 2, level 3. Ideally, you have different rooms named serving different purposes. You'd have a family planning room. That is where you're supposed to go.
Okay.
If you've never been in that facility, meaning you're going to have a challenge in navigating that clinic and finding where you're supposed to go. There's, of course, the wait time, but there's also the fear of who do you meet there. Will you meet your nurse neighbor, your nurse auntie, someone you know in church, and they look at you and they're like, wow, okay. And
your mom's entire prayer group could be going for a checkup that day.
And of course, you're here for contraceptives, so you must.
You're engaging.
Yeah. So there's that fear and shame, and a lot of it is also still like the fear of unknown, based on the experiences of other people. And like you said, it's a digital world. So I'll go online. Who said has used what? That is what I want. So I go. I want the oral pill.
Right.
This is what I want. It worked for my friend. So you've already shut out
all other
options because what you know is that it worked for my friend. And that's where information comes in. Ideally, a clinician or a service provider is supposed to close all their biases.
Yes.
Close the windows of being a mom, an auntie, a Christian. I'm offering you healthcare. So these are the options. Go through all of them and figure out what works for them.
But does the law currently allow the healthcare provider to give contraceptives to a minor?
Yeah.
No. That's where you have now another adult who's supposed to be accompanying this person. And in a case where you don't have an adult, and those are the mature minors, a girl who's already a mother, you'll have a children's officer who is able to support that process. Yeah. But the truth is, adolescents, young people are requesting for these products. And if they don't get them in a clinic, they'll go and buy them at a pharmacy.
So they're getting them elsewhere. Those that are getting them, they're getting them elsewhere. So here's the thing about then our society. Is our society ready to have a sex conversation?
No.
Even as adults, right? Forget about children.
Yeah.
My friend Siti Muga always keeps saying, sex is a conversation that you have. You switch off the lights, you get under the covers, and you have a conversation about sex. I mean, you don't just sit down and have open conversations with your partner. We're not talking about it with villagers, right? If you think about how we are socialized around the matter of sex, it is private, it is secret, you don't talk about it. You cannot be here at, we are 2 couples.
Yeah.
This couple was the best couple in my marriage. We can't talk sex.
Right. No.
The four of us.
You will discuss everything else.
We will talk everything else, invest,
finances,
Dubai,
politics,
our children
the
in school.
children.
We cannot talk about that.
Yeah.
So this is who we are as a society.
Yes.
How do we jump over that and now start bringing it to children? That a child is going to discuss sex with their mother or their father.
How do we skip the adults and go to the children?
How?
Yeah.
There is something we call age-appropriate information. When a child is in primary school or grade 1, the level of information is the information they can be able to understand and digest. And the further they go, the more information they are given. It's a similar concept. When a child is 3 years old, they should be able to say, this is my private part, this is my private part. And the idea is to be able to help them understand so that in case someone touches them there, in case someone does something wrong, then they're able to actually talk about it and say about it, right? So you take them slow, step by step. From private parts, okay, we go to the next. This is actually called a breast. This is actually called, you know, so that then by the time they get to high school, they have a level of information. Well, our education system...
About how private this thing is. Bas.
Yes.
Now that's it. You see, we have already primed it as this is so private. Don't touch it, don't talk about it, don't do these things publicly at all. Okay? And now here we are saying, now we are getting to that age where we want to start talking about it. How do I start talking about this thing that is so private? I was taught that this is private. This is so private, it's secret, it's mine. To start talking about it then.
No, then I think if you're talking about it, the privacy part is only, sorry, I'm just positing here.
Yes.
It's for protection of personal boundaries.
Yes.
That's the intention.
Not that it's, you think it can come off as now?
That's the intention. The intention of why we are telling our children that these are my private parts, let's nobody touch the private parts, is for that, for protection. Okay? But then the unintended consequence could be that because you have grown up knowing that this is private, because that's all of us know, these are private parts, these are private deeds, these are private conversations. How do we break that barrier? How do we mix these two messages? Let's take a break though. Come back shortly. It's 28 minutes after 8 today. It's World Contraception Day. We're discussing contraceptives with the Executive Director for the Ambassador for Youth and Adolescent Reproductive Health Program, Jerop Limo. Back in a moment. QED.
Utatuma? Utatuma? Sawa.
Quite easily that is like that. Yeah. As we get back into the conversation, several comments. Enoch is saying on X, hello fixers, kindly consider adding a clock display on the TV screen to enable viewers keep track of time. It is now, Enoch, it's 26 minutes to 8.
Yes.
And yeah, we'll take your consideration, your request into high consideration actually.
True.
And adding a clock. Paul Maina Mwalimu Sitaki Mapepe says, the best place for sex education is school and in a remote way at church or mosques. Schools should have programmed episodes on sex education. Personally, as a tutor, I try as much to guide the youth.
Good job, Paul.
Wangoi says, culturally, there's shame in access to contraceptives. Religion does the same. You're likely not to access that, for example, in churches that are against contraception publicly, and then they run a health facility. Are you likely to get contraceptives in such a health facility? You know? Yeah.
Even when, mambo ya contraception, I learned the hard way. Enough said, tafakari hayo, that's Emmanuel Templar. I learned the hard way. Unfortunately, for a lot of people, you learn the hard way. And we'll try to figure out how to prevent that. Even when information is accessible, we know Kenya has an issue with commodities. That's not the access as well, right? That's Wangoi speaking to the same. Let's begin maybe with the effects of learning the hard way from a country perspective. When I don't think we've taken sex education very seriously, if I'm being honest. So what does that look like as a result, whether it's the numbers of teenage pregnancy, STDs, all of that? Then we can thread again on now how to mainstream these contraception conversations.
So first of all, the consequence is not just unintended pregnancy. It could be HIV, it could be any other STI, it could be gender-based violence, and to some extent it could be death. And we've seen this cutting across different young people, communities, counties, and even areas. And in Kenya right now, we have some of the highest numbers of teenage pregnancies we've seen in years. Actually, it's been there. I just think it's because now it's very loud and we have media and we talk about it, and young people are documenting some of these aspects. So we have different counties leading in numbers, and Nairobi is among the counties leading in numbers of unintended and teenage pregnancies. Many of whom, when you dive deeper, because in our work you don't just look at the overview of issues, you try to really understand what led to this aspect. So you have maybe issues of economic and poverty aspects. You have issues of gender-based violence. Women were raped and defiled, and that goes without saying because we deal with this. We see these cases online every single day, and then we have young people who just basically didn't have information. So it's funny enough because do you guys know that today there's a young girl who believes or is made to believe that when you have unprotected sex, you can just wash your vagina with a soda and you won't get pregnant, or when you pee immediately you won't get pregnant, or when we have sex standing you won't get pregnant.
Wow. Okay.
That's literally the level of information they have. So this person is not in a position to be able to say, I don't know what to do, but also consent and the ability to say no or to negotiate for safe sex. Even with adults or guys above ages of 18, issues of condom conversations or safe sex, especially as women, we tend to shy away from them. So you let
we make it the man's job.
The man's job, right? But also the men, these issues of contraceptive have fully become a women's conversation. And it's how we were taught.
It's becoming everybody's responsibility is no one's responsibility. The woman is depending on the man to take the lead. The man is like, is only sini wewe ndo at the end of the day.
Ndo unafaa utumie. I mean, all these options, apart from the condom, are for women. And even from high school, when we started talking about menstruation, we were told, girls, let's go to this corner, and boys, you go away. It's not your conversation. You go and play. And that's how we got cultured. So even right now, even when young people become older, these are conversations of women. So a boyfriend, a husband will not want to engage in those conversations. And that's just one of the things we're trying to change. We're trying to help boys, adolescent boys and young men, and even older men, to understand that they have a role to play in reproductive health of women.
So we are identifying here that the biggest barrier to cracking this thing is culture and the socialization, right? And especially when you're talking about adolescents. These are children. Give them all, these are names, they are children. These children and the conversation around sex and who has a conversation about sex with them is a big issue. I remember Susan Keheka, when she was a senator, she proposed a bill in the Senate on expanding sex education and having sex education even in schools and communities and churches and such. And it was fought, it just never moved beyond that. So what is it that organizations such as yours and very many others in the network of reproductive health rights doing to address that from a cultural perspective such that we can change it? Sometimes I feel like we come to fight, and whenever you start a conversation from a fighting angle, that conversation is dead. So what is it that can be done to change this?
So one, partnership. As organizations, we don't work alone, actually. We work with the government, we work with the county health teams, we work with the clinician, because at the end of the day, we are not doing something new. We are just complementing what the government has put up and set up. And of course, we have to work in the confines of the law and the constitutions and the guide. We cannot work above or outside that. And partnership in the sense of, with the county, we try to understand what are the needs. For young people in Nairobi, you dive deeper and say, what do young people in Langata, what are their needs in terms of health services? How are the systems equipped to be able to address those needs? What is the level of information and how do we address that? So partnership, it's not a civil society job alone or a government job alone. It's partnership. And communities and young people are part of that partnership. Actually, there's no work that we do that is not led by the people, because at the end of the day, it's their needs we're trying to address. So you have young people, you have the parents, you have the church. Some churches are coming up and they're playing a huge role in influencing this conversation because they are realizing it's a need. And then you have the school, that's why you have the Ministry of Education, and we try to put our heads together and see at what point do we put our efforts together. Secondly, it's to advocate for systems to work. You see, for young people, if a system is complex, if a system is taking too much time, they might not want to interact with that system. And that's why we have issues of access to services. So for them, they'd rather go online. And that's why organizations like MTV, Staying Alive Foundation, have a chatbot, and they have Sugar, which is an entertainment program where when you watch, you can actually get some information, you can get some understanding about things you didn't have, and it can initiate some difficult conversation amongst us watching. So we have a lot of edutainment, digital engagements, conversations, dialogues, even at the community. You sit with Mzee wa Nyumba Kumi, you sit with the pastor, you sit with the youth leader, and we try and bring these conversations home. Lastly is trainings and capacity building, where we empower young people to be able to know that there's a clinic, you can go and access these services. We want the clinician to be able to offer non-judgmental services, offer non-stigmatizing services, be able to serve that young person properly so that then they can come back next time. And of course, issues of trying to make sure policies are responsive. As a country, we have amazing policies. It's the actualization of those policies where we have a problem.
We're going to put a jar here, honestly. Every time someone says, oh, we have great laws, we have great policy, it's the implement. We just put 100 bob in. I promise you, we're going to Bali at the end of the year, just from those 50 bobs and 100 bobs.
Yes, so we have a lot of young people who are participating in budget processes, who are participating in policy discussions to be able to push for policies and systems that actually
help.
work.
That help. Jerop, if you were to take us to outside of Nairobi, outside of an urban area, from the programs that you've run, tell us of a success story, let's be positive now, of a community that you've gone to and sat down with the adults and they were very responsive positively on the issues that you're raising of, let's talk about sex, contraception, and sex education to our children.
So I'll talk about one of our programs called Youth Care, and we implement this program in Homa Bay. And the program is on different levels. So you have facility level, that is at the service access point. Then you have community level, where now you're engaging the community gatekeepers, the community colleagues. And then now you go to the policy and advocacy level, where you're engaging the counties. One of the things, even us, is we assume that parents and our traditional caregivers are going to shy away and they're going to lock off this conversation. It's actually an assumption. But when I have sat with parents and caregivers just under a tree and we're just beating stories normally.
Tunachapa story.
As in, I could have
stories or beating stories.
See complicated or anything, just simple. You realize that for them, they know their teenagers have boyfriends and girlfriends, but wananyamaza too. So we have seen caregivers who've stood up and become champions. Champions in the sense of they're empowering fellow parents and caregivers. They are open and they're willing to talk about these conversations and they're not shying away from it.
So what is it that they do?
So we call them champions. They're community champions. So in health, we have the health system, but we also have the community health system. This is the community members who are now maybe community health promoter, who is a mentor mother, you have a peer educator. But in this sense, it's a mother, it's a father who says, I want you to come and empower wazee. Tutapatana na wazee. Kuja uwafunze hii mambo. Kuja uwaongeleshe. Because wanahitaji information from their own willingness. There is that like, sisi hatukuwa tunajua hizi vitu. Wewe ndo umetufunza. So kuja ufunze wazee wenzangu. And even as an institution, we now have a community of experts who, if I'm not there, if our program is not running, a neighbor who has an adolescent who has been raped or defiled knows I can go and knock on Baba Nani's door, and Baba Nani will be able to help me.
You can help and take me forward.
And take me forward.
In terms of accessing contraceptives, what is it that this champion does? Because I'm focusing on adolescents and youth, and the adults being that barrier. Give me a community where you went and these adults said, yes, I will have this conversation. We will talk to our children about sex, and we will talk to our children about contraception and contraceptives, and we will accompany our children
to the clinics
to get.
So one of the most important things in this whole conversation is an enabling environment.
Yes.
If there's no enabling environment, all this information is null and void. So even when you engage an adolescent, when they're given information, if the parent is not open-minded, or they actually don't have the correct information, they tend to block that from happening. So one of the things we are doing, even through the Gender Advisory Board, which is part of the work we are doing with MTV, is to have intergenerational dialogues. So you have caregivers, you have young people, you have adolescents, and we sit and have a conversation. And actually, you have to bring it home, because I cannot go to Homa Bay and in terms of their hierarchy of needs is issues around fishing or economic empowerment, and you want to talk about health. So you have to bring that conversation home.
That's why I want you to move away from this NGO speak. Okay, give me specifically. So you've said you've gone to Homa Bay. Some of these counties where we have high prevalence of teenage pregnancies and teen mothers, all right? You've gone there, and these ones require better access to contraceptives. And one of the issues that we have is cultural barriers, societal barriers, and adults. And you've broken that.
So now we are having an intergenerational dialogue, right? The purpose is to give them information first, for them to know that these products and services exist. You can get them at this facility here and there. Some facilities have certain days where they offer these services, so that is important information for them. Have in mind that we don't do this alone. We work with the health teams and the colleagues in the county to be able to support this process. When a father, a mother, a caregiver has this information, it becomes very easy for them to be able to say, okay, I think my child needs this information. So there's that door that has been opened that was locked previously, because then they have a level of understanding. But ideally, it's also not for their own children alone. It's for the community they serve.
And then the information
trickles and spreads.
Okay.
And spreads like that.
I think what Latif was looking for is like an actual, like that
case
pinpointed.
Study.
He wants a proper case study.
I want a proper case study. That's what I'm looking for. Because this what you're saying is being said everywhere. If you go into these rooms, you'll find people saying, the community champion, and the community champion will bring in other people and talk. But at the same time, that same room will be discussing how, these adolescents are not getting access, these youth are not getting access. And yet you're saying that you've done all this work at community and you have community champions. So there's a gap here. Either you don't have community champions or they're getting access.
It's a balance of both. You have community champions and you have communities who have information and they are empowered enough, but you also have a system that is responsive, sometimes that is not responsive. The idea is that there is a support system that exists. If I am a 13-year-old or a 15-year-old or 18-year-old, if I don't get this service, or if I'm exposed and I need this service, where do I go to? Who is my nearest support system? It may not be my father, but it could be my uncle who I feel open to talk to. And if my uncle has information, then they're able to tell me, okay, you can go to Clinic X, or I can actually take you. So then there's a level of support system from a family, household, all the way to community. Structure of a sort. All right. Just before, because we're just about to run out of time, I wanted to thread on religion and contraception, because you've mentioned the church as being, some of the partners that you have. Usually those two don't get along, and it's not just for the church, it's also for Islam, in general, a lot of religious communities.
Also, Paul Miner, also not Paul, one of our fixers on YouTube, spoke of the church also being a place where you could start having early sex education. Is that a possibility realistically? And how do we bring the church, the mosque, the Hindu council, everyone on board with this contraceptive conversation?
Actually, well, it's a difficult conversation to have publicly, or rather it's unheard of to hear the church say, we support, we agree, but a lot of times...
Pigs would fly that day.
A lot of times, right now, we are seeing actually churches being... They won't have the conversation directly, they won't like come here and talk about it, but they will somehow support from a distance. We have a lot of faith-based organization-run facilities, and many of our communities actually access services there. So, well, the church is a church. When it comes to offering services, I believe you should be able to offer the service that this individual needs. So we are trying to ensure that they sort of slowly open up to having these conversations, and they support. And now we have some churches who are like, I think you can come and talk to my youth. I, as the pastor, won't talk to them, but you come. And these are the boundaries. You cannot go beyond this. And it's okay, because it means we are getting somewhere.
Okay. Other religions coming on board? Islam, Hinduism? Anything like that?
Yes, actually, we do have different bodies of faith, different faiths who are coming up to talk about this, and we have organizations like Inerella who are bringing together different religious groups to be able to champion for health, to be able condoms, contraceptives, across board. Of course, it's still limited, not as loud as we would want it to be, but I feel like we are headed somewhere.
For parents who would like to have a free conversation with their children, their nephews and nieces, around these matters of safe sex and contraception, but they, because of socialization and how you've been brought up, you do not know all these things. Do you offer support, like where parents can come and you help parents basically just break down this conversation?
Yes.
Or have this chat moderated conversations with their children?
Or should the parents go to a separate class? Did you mention that?
Like starting, but you see, the end goal is I want to have this conversation with my child.
Your child,
Right? So
but you go to school first, and then now you can teach.
We can start that, the culture me, and then now moderate this conversation where we are sitting there and the children and you're running this conversation.
Actually, now I feel like it's pretty simple. You don't have to directly have the conversation with your child, but you can allow them to watch Sugar, for example. And when they watch Sugar, there's a chatbot they can talk to. And even you as a caregiver, if you don't know what to do, you can go to Semanami and say, I think my child is having sex, what do I do? Or how do I guide them? And of course, then there are different other opportunities where you can engage in community dialogues. We are not everywhere, but there are many other organizations that are running programs in this space. But for caregivers, we try and remind them, if you're not able to, that's why there's a healthcare provider.
Right.
If you go with your child, that healthcare provider will not be scared or shy away from initiating that conversation. But if you're afraid even with going with your child, there are many digital health spaces now that exist to be able to support and to guide and to help you walk on that journey.
I quite like that because, first of all, you sit on the Gender Advisory Board for the MTV Staying Alive Foundation. For context, MTV Staying Alive is behind MTV Sugar Mashariki and Niger and South Africa and so on.
And you're in Mashariki.
Nimesema Mashariki?
And you're in Mashariki.
I'm in Mashariki.
And you're in Mashariki. You bring that up.
Ochani, slide in. But the fact that we're mainstreaming this from a culture, from an arts perspective is also really important. There's still that barrier from a parent's perspective because as a young person, I'll watch Sugar. I'll watch anything else that, but getting the parents to be like, that's a whole other thing. They'll be like, ile show ya sex. It's a no from me.
It's a no for
How do you?
Would you be comfortable watching Sugar? Okay, with a child, an adolescent be comfortable watching Sugar with their parent?
No, not really.
That's
but
the barrier. These are the things I'm talking about. if we can't watch a kissing scene with our children, how are we going to have these other conversations?
That's why it's meant to initiate difficult conversations, because we have to start from somewhere. When I was growing up, even greeting a boy was a problem.
Yeah.
Like greeting a boy.
Unamsalimia kama afande.
Hapo ingekuwa tu shida. Neighbor alishaona alishakusema unangojewa. But where we are at is that we can hug boys. As in, it's no longer, things are shifting, and they're shifting very quickly.
Sure.
And that's why we are like, we want to provide an enabling environment at home, at school, and in the community. Because if you don't empower them when they're young, then it becomes difficult to put emphasis on certain things when they are older.
Very true. I like that mainstreaming of these. I would like to see even more forms of art that have these themes in a subtle way, edutainment, like you've said, right? So let's go into comic books, let's do feature films, let's do more series, let's do theater, all of that and more. But thank you so much, Jerop, for making time for us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
It's World Contraception Day, so I'm hoping that, wherever you are, you've gotten a little bit more informed. The hashtag continues to be Fixing the Nation NTV. We'll be right back after the break.